Imagine yourself seated at a candlelit table in a bustling Miami restaurant, the air thick with the intoxicating aroma of dishes so extraordinary they've become the talk of the city. The chef, a charismatic figure with $1 million smile, is a local legend, his culinary creations drawing food lovers from across the country. You trust him, his food, his charm, his rags to riches story of rising from humble beginnings to culinary stardom. But what if the meal you're savoring, the one you've raved about to friends, hides a secret so horrific it could shatter your trust in everything? What if the man behind the apron, the one you've celebrated as a hero, is concealing a nightmare behind locked doors? This is the chilling story of Kaimani Carter, a chef whose insatiable hunger for fame twisted into a legacy of betrayal and terror. Buckle up for a 40-minute deep dive into one of the most shocking true crime cases you'll ever hear, a tale that'll make you question ambition, trust, and the very food on your plate. Hit that like button, grab a drink, maybe skip the meat, and let's unravel this haunting journey together. Before we dive into this haunting tale, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Are you chilling in New York, sipping coffee in London, or maybe tuning in late at night from Sydney? Drop your location in the comments below, and let's see how far this true crime story reaches. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more true crime stories that'll keep you up at night. Kaimani Carter was no ordinary chef, he was a phenomenon, a man whose name became synonymous with culinary brilliance in Florida and beyond. In his late 30s, this Jacksonville native had transformed his passion for food into an empire centered around Soulfire Kitchen, a Miami restaurant that wasn't just a dining spot but a cultural landmark. With his warm brown eyes, infectious laugh, and a knack for turning simple ingredients into plates that left diners speechless, Kaimani was the kind of person who could command a room without effort. His dishes weren't just meals, they were stories, each bite a testament to his creativity and relentless drive. Customers described his food as otherworldly. Flavors so unique they lingered in memory long after the plates were cleared. Critics hailed him as a visionary, a black entrepreneur who defied the odds to inspire a generation. His restaurant, with its vibrant murals of southern landscapes and live jazz on weekends, was a celebration of his roots, drawing crowds night after night. But behind the polished exterior of Soulfire Kitchen lay a darkness that no one could have imagined, a secret that would unravel everything Kaimani had built and leave a community scarred. Born in a tight-knit African-American neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida, Kaimani's early life was shaped by modesty, resilience, and the comforting rhythms of his mother's kitchen. Loretta Carter, a single mother, worked grueling hours as a school cafeteria cook, stretching every dollar to provide for Kaimani and his younger sister, Tasha. Their small, second-floor apartment was filled with the warm smells of collard greens simmering, cornbread baking, and smothered chicken sizzling in a cast-iron skillet. At 8 years old, Kaimani would climb onto a wobbly wooden stool, stirring pots under Loretta's watchful eye, learning the alchemy of spices and the soul of a well-cooked meal. "Food is how we tell our story," Loretta would say, her hands dusted with flour from kneading biscuit dough. Those words became Kaimani's mantra, igniting a dream to escape the constraints of his circumstances, a world of limited opportunities, where the weight of poverty pressed hard. He saw cooking as his ticket to something bigger, a way to carve out a legacy beyond the cracked sidewalks of his neighborhood. By his teens, Kaimani was hustling, washing dishes at greasy diners and bussing tables at local barbecue joints, soaking up every lesson from weathered line cooks. He'd spend hours after school sketching recipes in a tattered notebook, dreaming of dishes that could tell his story to the world. He saved every penny for culinary school, balancing night shifts with early morning classes. His instructors at the Culinary Institute of Florida noticed his potential early, a bold creativity that pushed boundaries, an almost obsessive attention to detail, and a flair for presentation that turned plates into art. He'd spend hours perfecting a single sauce, one instructor later recalled, like it was his life's mission. But there were hints of something darker even then, moments when Kaimani's drive tipped into fixation, his temper flaring when anyone questioned his methods. After graduating with honors, he worked in high-end kitchens across Miami, learning the cutthroat world of fine dining. At 32, he opened Soulfire Kitchen, a vibrant space that blended his southern roots with Miami's cosmopolitan flair. The restaurant was an instant hit, its colorful decor and soulful menu, think shrimp and grits with a truffle twist, or cornbread drizzled with lavender honey, drawing crowds from South Beach to Atlanta. What set Soulfire Kitchen apart wasn't just its ambience or Kaimani's charisma. It was the chef's specials, a series of exclusive dishes prepared solely by Kaimani himself. Named with cryptic titles like Prime Reserve No. 7, Heritage Cut No. 12, or Artisan Prime No. 21, these dishes were the restaurant's crown jewels, their flavors so distinct, so unforgettable, that diners traveled hours to experience them. A single bite could spark gasps of delight, with patrons describing the texture as melt in your mouth and the taste as unlike anything else. The secrecy surrounding these specials was part of their allure. No one, not the sous chefs, not the wait staff, knew the recipes. Kaimani prepared them in a locked-off section of the kitchen, emerging with plates that left customers in awe. A chef's got to keep some secrets, he'd say with a wink when pressed about the ingredients. Regulars speculated about rare imports or ancient techniques, while critics praised his genius for innovation. At first, this secrecy seemed like the hallmark of a perfectionist, a master craftsman who demanded control over his art. But it was also the first thread in a tapestry of horror that would later unravel. At the heart of Kaimani's empire was his wife, Amara Carter, a woman whose quiet strength and razor-sharp mind were the backbone of Soulfire Kitchen. Amara, a 35-year-old Miami native, was an accountant by trade, with a knack for numbers and a warm laugh that could light up a room. She met Kaimani at a community fundraiser in their 20s, where he was volunteering to cook for a youth mentorship program. His passion for food, his relentless ambition to rise above his circumstances, drew her in like a moth to a flame. Kaimani admired her intelligence, her ability to manage chaos with grace, and the way she believed in his dreams even when he doubted himself. They fell in love quickly, building a partnership rooted in shared goals and mutual respect. When Soulfire opened, Amara left her corporate job at a downtown accounting firm to manage the restaurant's finances, handling suppliers, payroll, and bookings with meticulous care. She was the unsung hero behind Kaimani's spotlight, ensuring the business ran like a well-oiled machine while he dazzled diners and critics with his culinary flair. Their marriage was the envy of Miami's culinary scene, a power couple with a thriving restaurant, a sleek condo overlooking Biscayne Bay, and dreams of expanding Soulfire into a national brand, perhaps even landing a spot on a cooking show. Amara's friends described her as Kaimani's anchor, the one who kept his feet on the ground while he chased the stars. But as Soulfire Kitchen's fame skyrocketed, the pressure began to fracture their perfect facade. Kaimani's late nights at the restaurant became a regular occurrence, his excuses growing vaguer with each passing day. Just perfecting a new special, he'd mutter, avoiding Amara's gaze as he slipped out the door, his chef's coat slung over his shoulder. She noticed other changes too. His once vibrant energy was replaced by a guardedness that felt foreign. He'd snap at small questions, his hands trembling when he thought she wasn't looking. Amara, with her accountant's eye for detail, began spotting inconsistencies that gnawed at her. Strange deliveries arrived after hours, always handled by Kaimani alone, with no paperwork to trace. A heavy-duty freezer in the kitchen was locked, accessible only to him, its contents a mystery even to his closest staff. When she asked about it, Kaimani laughed it off, calling it his creative vault where he stored special ingredients. But the charm that once reassured her now rang hollow, like a rehearsed line delivered one too many times. One evening, while balancing the books in their home office, she found invoices for suppliers listed only by initials: JL Enterprises, RT Provisions, names that didn't match any known vendors. "Who's JL?" she asked Kaimani over dinner, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. His reaction was immediate, his voice sharp with an edge she'd never heard before. "It's just business. Amara. Stay out of it." The man she'd built a life with was slipping away, replaced by a stranger whose secrets were pulling them apart. Amara's unease grew with each passing day. She'd catch Kaimani scribbling in a leather-bound notebook, slamming it shut when she entered the room, his eyes darting with a mix of guilt and irritation. One night she glimpsed him in the restaurant's office, hunched over the notebook, muttering to himself as he wrote. When she called his name, he startled, shoving the notebook into a drawer and snapping, "What are you doing here, Amara?" His defensiveness sent a chill down her spine. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the stress of running a high-profile restaurant, the pressure to stay at the top of Miami's cutthroat culinary scene. But her intuition, honed by years of spotting discrepancies in ledgers and reading people, told her something was terribly wrong. She began paying closer attention, noting the odd deliveries that arrived in unmarked vans, the way Kaimani would disappear into the kitchen for hours, emerging with a forced smile and vague explanations. Her suspicions deepened when she overheard a sous chef, Darius Mitchell, muttering about the locked freezer. "He doesn't let anyone near it," Darius told a coworker, his voice low. "Not even me, and I've been with him since day one." Darius, a lanky 34-year-old who'd grown up in the same Jacksonville neighborhood as Kaimani, was more than an employee. He was a childhood friend, loyal to a fault. But even he seemed uneasy, his faith in Kaimani wavering as the chef's behavior grew erratic. While Amara grappled with her growing suspicions, the Miami community was facing its own quiet terror. Over the past 2 years, 23 people had vanished without a trace there. Disappearances casting a shadow over the city. There was Marcus Tillman, a 62-year-old retiree who lived alone in a modest bungalow, known for his morning walks and chats with neighbors over coffee at a local diner. Rachel Lewis, a 24-year-old gas station clerk, was saving for college, her infectious smile a fixture on the night shift. David and Lena Harper, a young couple in their late 20s, were last seen jogging near the beach, their running shoes found abandoned on a boardwalk. A homeless veteran, James Jimmy Reed, who often slept near the restaurant district, vanished after accepting a free meal from Soulfire's community outreach. At first, the disappearances seemed random, scattered across Miami's diverse neighborhoods with no clear connection. But as the cases mounted, a chilling pattern emerged. Many of the missing had been spotted near Soulfire Kitchen. Some had dined there, raving about the chef's specials on social media. Others worked in the area, grabbing takeout or passing by on their daily routines. The community, tight-knit and fiercely proud of Kaimani's success, was reluctant to point fingers. He was one of their own, a black entrepreneur who defied systemic barriers to become a beacon of hope. His restaurant sponsored youth cooking classes, donated to food banks, and hosted free Thanksgiving dinners for the needy. To suspect him felt like betraying a hero, a man who'd put their community on the map. Yet the whispers grew louder. Neighbors exchanging uneasy glances at barbecues, church gatherings, and corner stores. "Something's not right about that place," one woman murmured to her friend, her voice barely above a whisper. "Too many people go missing around there." One person who couldn't ignore the rumors was Elijah Bennett, a 29-year-old food journalist with a reputation for digging deeper than most. Elijah had been one of Soulfire Kitchen's earliest champions, his glowing reviews in local magazines like Miami Eats helping propel the restaurant to fame. He'd described Kaimani's chef's specials as a revelation, praising their unparalleled depth of flavor and melt-in-your-mouth texture. But Elijah was curious, borderline obsessed, with the mystery behind those specials. Why were they numbered? Prime Reserve number 7, Heritage Cut number 12. Why did Kaimani guard the recipes so fiercely, refusing to let even his sous chefs in on the process? He started frequenting the restaurant, chatting up waitstaff and line cooks, asking pointed questions about sourcing. Where do you get the meat for prime cut number 12? He'd ask, his notepad always at the ready, his hazel eyes sharp with curiosity. Kaimani's responses were smooth, almost rehearsed. A chef's got to keep some secrets. Unsatisfied, Elijah dug deeper, contacting suppliers listed on public records and finding dead ends. None matched the mysterious initials on Soulfire's invoices. He began staking out the restaurant after hours, parking across the street with a thermos of coffee, noting unmarked vans pulling up to the back entrance, their drivers exchanging hushed words with Kaimani. He interviewed a former dishwasher, 19-year-old Miguel Torres, who described Kaimani's paranoia about the locked freezer. He'd lose it if anyone got too close, Miguel said, nervously twisting his cap. One time, I asked what was in there, and he threatened to fire me on the spot. Elijah's persistence made him a thorn in Kaimani's side, and then, one night, after dining at Soulfire and scribbling notes about Heritage Reserve number 21, Elijah vanished. His phone went offline, his small apartment in Coconut Grove untouched, his laptop still open to a draft article titled The Mystery of Soulfire's Specials. Days later, Kaimani unveiled a new dish, Prime Cut number 22. The timing was too eerie, sending chills through those who'd been following the disappearances. Amara's suspicions were reaching a breaking point. The rumors about the missing, the locked freezer, Elijah's disappearance, it was all too much to dismiss as coincidence. She couldn't shake the image of Kaimani hunched over his leather-bound notebook, slamming it shut when she entered the room, his eyes flickering with something she couldn't name, guilt, fear, or something worse. One evening, while he was out, she searched his office, her hands trembling as she rifled through stacks of invoices and receipts. Beneath a pile of papers, she found the notebook, a ledger really, its pages filled with cryptic entries, initials, dates, and notes about preparation methods that didn't match any standard recipe. Empty, slow-roasted, rich texture, paired with smoked paprika, one entry read. EB, tender, infused with rosemary, served rare. Her stomach churned as she recognized the initials, Marcus Tillman, Elijah Bennett. The implications were unthinkable, but the pieces were falling into place like a grotesque puzzle. She tried to confront Kaimani, choosing her words carefully to avoid tipping him off. I found your notebook, she said one night in their living room, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. What's it about, Kaimani? His reaction was explosive, his face twisting with a mix of anger and panic. You went through my things? What gives you the right? He shouted, his voice trembling as he paced the room. It's just business records, Amara. You wouldn't understand. But she saw the fear in his eyes, the way his hands clenched into fists, the beads of sweat on his forehead. The man she'd loved for over a decade, the man she'd built a life with, was hiding something monstrous. Determined to uncover the truth, Amara followed Kaimani to Soulfire Kitchen one night, her heart pounding as she parked a block away and watched him slip through the back entrance. She waited until the dining room lights dimmed, then crept inside using a spare key she'd kept from her days managing the restaurant. The space was eerily quiet, the only sound the low hum of the industrial freezer in the kitchen. Her breath caught in her throat as she approached the forbidden freezer, its stainless steel surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She searched frantically for the key, her fingers brushing against knives, cutting boards, and spice jars until she found it taped beneath a butcher block, a hiding spot Kaimani thought was safe. Her hands trembled as she turned the lock, the click echoing like a gunshot in the silent kitchen. The cold air hit her face like a slap, carrying a faint metallic scent. Inside were rows of neatly wrapped packages, each labeled with initials. MTEBRL DH, names she recognized from missing persons reports plastered across Miami. Marcus Tillman, the retiree. Elijah Bennett, the journalist. Rachel Lewis, the clerk. David and Lena Harper, the joggers. The realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. Kaimani's chef's specials, the dishes that had made him a legend, were made from human flesh. She stumbled back, the freezer door still ajar, her knees buckling as the horror sank in. How had it come to this? The man she married, the man she trusted with her heart and future, was a predator hiding in plain sight. Before she could flee, Kaimani's shadow loomed in the doorway, his face pale with dread. "Amara," he said, his voice shaking, "you weren't supposed to see this." She backed away, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. "What have you done, Kaimani? How could you?" He collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face as he spilled a desperate, rambling confession. It started with a supply issue, he claimed, a failed delivery before a high-profile event for Miami's elite, including food critics and investors. In a panic to save the night, he made a choice he couldn't undo, sourcing meat from a desperate place. A body, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "They loved it," he said, his eyes gleaming with a manic intensity that chilled her to the bone. "The critics, the customers, they couldn't get enough. It was like nothing else, Amara. I had to keep going, for us, for Soulfire, for everything we built." His words were a twisted plea, as if he believed his actions were justified by the restaurant's success. "This industry is brutal," he continued, his voice rising. "You don't know the pressure, the constant need to be better, to be the best. If I didn't do it, we'd lose everything." Amara's horror turned to rage, her voice trembling but resolute. "For us? You're feeding people." She couldn't finish, the words too grotesque to speak. She turned to run, vowing to go to the police, to end this nightmare. But Kaimani's desperation morphed into something darker, his eyes narrowing with a predatory glint. "I can't let you ruin this," he growled, grabbing a chef's knife from the counter, its blade glinting under the kitchen lights. Amara's screams filled the room as she fought back, knocking over pans and utensils in a frantic struggle, her nails clawing at his arms. But Kaimani's strength and resolve overpowered her. In a brutal moment, he plunged the knife into her chest, her body crumpling to the cold tile floor. Her eyes, wide with betrayal and pain, locked onto his as her life faded, her final breath a silent accusation. The knife, slick with her blood, fell from his trembling hand, clattering against the floor, a damning piece of evidence that would later bring his empire crashing down. Amara's disappearance sent shockwaves through Miami's tight-knit community. Kaimani played the role of the grieving husband, his voice laced with feigned worry as he called her friends and family, his crocodile tears carefully calibrated. "Have you seen Amara? She didn't come home," he told Jada Williams, her best friend since high school, his tone trembling just enough to seem convincing. But Jada, a no-nonsense nurse who'd known Amara for 2 decades, wasn't fooled. Amara would never just vanish, she told police, her voice firm and urgent. She was dependable, always texting to check in, always at every book club or brunch. "Something's wrong." The community rallied, organizing candlelight vigils and plastering missing posters across Miami. Amara's smiling face staring out from telephone poles and storefronts. But the whispers about Soulfire Kitchen grew louder, neighbors recalling the string of disappearances linked to the restaurant's orbit. Kaimani's overcompensating concern, his too perfect tears, his vague answers about Amara's errands, raised subtle alarms among those who knew him best. Detective Zara Holmes had been watching Kaimani for months, her sharp instincts honed by 15 years on the Miami police force. A 42-year-old Miami native, Zara was known for her relentless pursuit of truth and her ability to spot lies in a glance. As a black woman in law enforcement, she'd faced her share of challenges, earning the community's trust through years of dedication to cases others overlooked. The missing persons cases hit close to home. Some victims were people she'd known growing up in Miami's Overtown neighborhood. Marcus Tillman had been her high school history teacher, always slipping her extra books to encourage her curiosity. Rachel Lewis used to babysit her nephew, her laughter filling Zara's family barbecues. The pattern of disappearances around Soulfire Kitchen had put Kaimani on her radar long before Amara vanished, but the lack of concrete evidence had kept her at bay. Amara's disappearance was the final straw, a personal blow that spurred Zara into action. A tip from a local business owner changed everything. A dashcam from a car parked across from Soulfire had captured Amara entering the restaurant late at night, but never leaving. Kaimani had tampered with the restaurant's CCTV, citing privacy concerns for his high-profile clients, but the dashcam was his undoing. Armed with this footage, Zara secured a search warrant, her team moving with precision to avoid tipping Kaimani off. The search of Soulfire Kitchen was meticulous, a tense operation under the fluorescent glow of the restaurant's kitchen. Zara's team combed every inch, their gloved hands probing drawers, cabinets, and appliances. In the locked freezer, they found faint traces of blood, later matched to multiple missing persons through DNA analysis. A meat grinder in the corner revealed microscopic remnants of human tissue, sending chills through even the most seasoned investigators. But the most shocking discovery came when Zara noticed an out-of-place picture frame in the hallway near the kitchen, a vibrant mural of a southern oak tree that seemed slightly askew. Her instincts, honed by years of cracking cases, told her something was off. She ran her fingers along the frame, finding a hidden button that clicked open a concealed door. Behind it was a staircase descending into a basement room, a space that seemed ripped from a horror film. The air was cold and sterile, the walls lined with stainless steel shelves holding preserved remains, each package labeled with initials, MTEB, RL, DH, LH, J.R. Personal belongings, wallets, jewelry, watches, a pair of running shoes, were meticulously catalogued, like trophies of Kaimani's crimes. A leather-bound ledger sat on a metal desk, its pages detailing every victim, their preparation methods, and the dishes they became: Prime Cut No. 7, Heritage Reserve No. 12, Artisan Prime No. 21. Zara's stomach turned as she read the entries, each one a life stolen, reduced to a culinary experiment. The room was a testament to Kaimani's calculated evil, a macabre shrine to his twisted ambition. Her team stood in stunned silence, the weight of the discovery pressing down like a physical force. This wasn't just a crime scene, it was the unraveling of a community's trust. Zara timed the arrest for maximum impact, storming Soulfire Kitchen during a packed dinner service on a Friday night. The dining room was alive with chatter, patrons savoring their meals, the clink of wine glasses mingling with the soft hum of jazz. Kaimani, dressed in his pristine chef's coat, was plating a chef's special, his hands steady as he drizzled sauce with practiced precision. Zara and her team entered, their badges glinting under the chandeliers. "Kaimani Carter," she announced, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade, "you're under arrest for the murders of Amara Carter and 22 others." The room fell silent, forks clattering to plates as diners watched in disbelief. Kaimani froze, a porcelain plate slipping from his hands and shattering on the floor, the sound echoing his crumbling empire. "You've got it wrong," he stammered, his voice trembling as sweat beaded on his forehead. "You don't understand." Zara's gaze was unflinching, her voice steady but laced with disgust. "We found the room, Kaimani. We know what you did, the human remains, the ledger, the specials you served to this community." His confident facade cracked, his shoulders slumping as he was handcuffed and led out, his chef's coat stained with sauce and shame. Outside, cameras flashed as onlookers gathered, a crowd of neighbors, reporters, and former patrons witnessing the fall of a man who'd once been a local hero. The Miami Herald's headline the next day was stark: "Culinary King Unmasked as Monster." The trial of Kaimani Carter was a media frenzy, one of the most sensational cases in Florida's history, drawing national attention and true crime fanatics. The courtroom was packed daily, with victims' families, reporters, and community members crammed into the pews, their faces a mix of grief, anger, and disbelief. The prosecution, led by Zara Holmes, presented a mountain of evidence: DNA matches linking the freezer's contents to the missing, the meat grinder's horrific remnants, the ledger's chilling details. Kaimani's defense team, grasping at straws, tried to paint him as a man undone by pressure, not a predator. He was desperate to save his dream, his lawyer argued, pacing before the jury. These were ill-conceived choices born of a spiraling mind, not premeditated evil. Kaimani took the stand, his once charismatic demeanor replaced by a hollow, rehearsed remorse. "I know what I did was wrong," he said, his voice shaking as he addressed the court, avoiding the eyes of the victims' families. "But I didn't start out to hurt anyone. It got out of control. I was scared of losing everything: my restaurant, my legacy, my family." His words were met with audible outrage, gasps and sobs rippling through the gallery. Marcus Tillman's sister clutched a photo of her brother, her tears falling silently. Rachel Lewis's mother shook her head, whispering, "You're no victim." Darius Mitchell, Kaimani's sous chef and childhood friend, provided devastating testimony, his voice heavy with betrayal. "He didn't trust anyone," Darius said, his hands clasped tightly on the stand. "He'd work alone on the specials, locking the kitchen door. If you asked about the process, he'd shut you down or threaten to fire you. I thought it was just him being a perfectionist, but—" His voice trailed off, his eyes glistening with regret. A former server, 22-year-old Sofia Alvarez, described the toxic workplace, recounting how Kaimani's paranoia had poisoned the staff. "He'd watch us like hawks," she said, her voice trembling. "One time, I asked why the freezer was locked, and he said I'd be out of a job if I ever asked again." Zara's testimony was the most damning, her presence commanding as she walked the jury through the basement's horrors. She presented photos of the labeled remains, reading entries from the ledger in a steady voice: "EB, tender, infused with rosemary, served rare." The courtroom sat in stunned silence, some jurors visibly shaken, one covering her mouth. "He didn't just kill," Zara said, her voice laced with controlled fury. "He turned his victims into a legacy, feeding their remains to unsuspecting diners who praised his genius. This was not desperation, it was calculated, deliberate evil." The psychological profile of Kaimani, presented by a court-appointed expert, offered a chilling glimpse into his descent. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a forensic psychologist, testified that Kaimani's obsession with perfection and control likely stemmed from his childhood struggles, where food became his escape from poverty's chaos. "He saw his restaurant as an extension of himself," she explained. "Any threat to its success was a threat to his identity." This fixation, combined with the pressures of fame, may have triggered a dissociative break, allowing him to justify his actions as necessary for survival. But she emphasized, his meticulous planning, the ledger, the hidden room, pointed to a calculated mind, not a man lost to impulse. The jury deliberated for mere hours, their faces grim as they returned. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. The judge, a stern woman with decades on the bench, addressed Kaimani directly, her voice resolute. "Kaimani Carter, your actions were not the result of desperation but of deliberate, calculated choices. You preyed on innocent people, betraying the trust of your community and the love of your family. You turned a place of nourishment into a house of horrors. Your crimes are among the most heinous this court has seen." She sentenced him to life without parole for each of the 23 murders, to be served consecutively, ensuring he would never walk free. Gasps and cries of relief rippled through the room as families wept, some clutching photos of their loved ones, others staring at Kaimani with a mix of grief and fury. He stood motionless, his once charismatic demeanor replaced by a hollow stare, the weight of his actions finally inescapable. The aftermath of Kaimani's crimes left deep, lasting scars on Miami's community. Soulfire Kitchen closed forever, its vibrant murals boarded up, its name now synonymous with horror. The building sat empty for months, a grim reminder of the betrayal that had unfolded within its walls. Some called for its demolition, unable to stomach its presence. Others suggested turning it into a memorial for the victims. The families of the 23 victims found some solace in the verdict, but the pain of their loss lingered, an open wound that no sentence could heal. Marcus Tillman's sister, Evelyn, spoke at a community vigil, her voice breaking as she held a candle. "He was more than a name in that ledger. He was my brother, my rock, the one who taught me to dream big." Rachel Lewis's mother, Gloria, planted a garden in her daughter's memory, a quiet act of healing where she grew roses, Rachel's favorite flower. David and Lena Harper's parents created a scholarship fund for young athletes, honoring their love for running. James Reed's fellow veterans held a small ceremony, scattering ashes near the beach where he'd once found peace. The community grappled with its own guilt, wondering if they'd missed signs, if their pride in Kaimani had blinded them to his darkness. "We celebrated him," one neighbor said at a town hall, her voice heavy. "We ate at his table. How did we not see?" Detective Zara Holmes was hailed as a hero, her tireless pursuit of justice bringing closure to a wounded community. But even she admitted the case would haunt her forever. "I grew up with these people," she told a reporter outside the courthouse, her eyes tired but resolute. Uncovering this felt personal, like losing a piece of home. "But I had to do it, for them, for Amara, for everyone he hurt." Zara's work earned her a commendation from the Miami Police Department, but she shunned the spotlight, redirecting praise to the victims' families and her team. Her investigation had not only exposed Kaimani's crimes but also sparked citywide conversations about trust, oversight, and the pressures of ambition in a community fighting to rise above systemic challenges. Kaimani Carter's story is a chilling cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, a stark reminder that the pursuit of perfection can curdle into something monstrous. His drive to be the best, to cement his legacy, led him down a path of unimaginable darkness, where human lives became ingredients in his twisted vision of success. He betrayed not only his community but the love of his wife, Amara, sacrificing everything that mattered for a fame built on blood. The psychological descent, from a dreamer in his mother's kitchen to a predator cataloging his victims, raises uncomfortable questions about human nature. Was Kaimani's sentence just? A life sentence for each of the 23 lives he stole? Can justice ever truly balance the scales for such profound loss? Were there signs the community missed? Moments where someone could have intervened before his actions spiraled into horror? Perhaps the most haunting question is this: how well do we truly know the people we trust, the ones we invite into our lives, our homes, our tables? This story forces us to confront the fine line between ambition and obsession, between trust and betrayal, between the hunger for success and the cost of losing one's humanity. As you reflect on this case, what do you think? Can justice ever heal a wound this deep? Could the signs have been caught earlier, stopping Kaimani before he became a monster? What does it say about us when we place someone on a pedestal, blind to the cracks in their facade? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take on this chilling tale. If this story shook you, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more true crime deep dives that explore the darkest corners of human nature. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and maybe take a second look at what's on your plate. Thank you for watching.